Okay, a lot of tweeting going on lately. President Trump taunting Kim Jong-un over the sanctions slapped on North Korea, tweeting, quote, "I spoke with President Moon of South Korea last night, asked him how Rocket Man is doing," talking about Kim Jong-un up in North Korea. "Long gas lines forming in North Korea, too bad." Well, it's a bold tweet. Is this the right tactic to take against this rogue regime and its wild leader? Here to debate that, former DNC staffer Pablo Manriquez and Republican strategist Noel Nikpour. Guys, thanks so much for coming on very early this morning.
Thanks.
Pablo, we're going to start with you. The president, he's a trash talker. He likes to get in there and he likes to talk. What do you think of calling Kim Jong-un Rocket Man?
Well, I mean, the term Rocket Man, it could definitely stick. I've been, highly critical before of the president tweeting, these types of indicators or sort of telegraphing our passes from a foreign policy standpoint. But the launch over Hokkaido over the weekend is definitely something that's extremely concerning, given that, the distance between Hokkaido and North Korea is roughly the same distance as Guam. So we do need to respond. I think it's telling today that China and Russia are going to not show up to the UN reform meeting that's going on. I think that we do need international partners if we are going to move forward with anything on North Korea. And as General McMaster said this weekend, the military option is still on the table. So these are very tense times. I'm not sure if tweets are necessarily the best way to go, but we can't not act.
It's very tense. But Noel, let me ask you something. I mean, it's been a lot of talking, and it seems like a lot of bluff calling, because I mean, when you have Kim Jong-un saying he's going to bomb Guam, if you're going to bomb Guam, you're going to bomb Guam. You're not going to tell everybody you're going to do it and give them time to evacuate. So it just doesn't seem like, it seems like this is just a lot of calling the bluff. Is this a pretty safe place to talk some trash? Because obviously, if Kim Jong-un does fire off a missile, he knows that his country's going to be gone very quickly, even if he does, do some damage.
Well, you've got to look at the fact that, they have been trying to taunt the USA. They've been taunting other countries. They've been taunting and taunting for years. And I think that, society, I think everybody is really tired of it. And, there's a lot of talk, tough talk from Trump and Nikki Haley and Tillerson. I mean, everybody realizes this is going to be a last resort option. But I really think that Trump has got good tactics when it comes to this for dealing with him.
Yeah, let's go to a soundbite real quick from Rex Tillerson and Nikki Haley from yesterday on the Big Sunday shows.
If our diplomatic efforts fail, though, our military option will be the only one left.
If North Korea keeps on with this reckless behavior, if the United States has to defend itself or defend its allies in any way, North Korea will be destroyed. And we all know that. And none of us want that.
And Noel, and both of you guys, real quick, just a quick response. I mean, obviously, that is the end result of this. I mean, there's no questioning who would win a war between the two of us, right?
Right. Given given that our defense secretary is General Mattis, rather, I mean, I would be shivering in my boots if I were North Korea.
Okay. And Noel?
It's time to slam it down. It's time to slice the rhetoric and show him who's boss.
Understood. Okay. Let's go to our second topic here. This was very interesting to me. This story about the kid mowing the lawn at the White House, I thought would be just universally loved because it was just so adorable. But we had a former New York Times reporter say essentially that it sends a bad signal on child labor and the safety issues of having a kid do this. I thought it was just a bit of an outrageous statement. Let's go ahead and read it. Not sending a great signal on child labor, minimum wage, and occupational safety, to the headline, the Trump White House lets a 10-year-old volunteer mow its lawn. Pablo, over to you for a second. I mean, obviously, it's a criticism. I mean, if this was a universally loved person that let somebody mow their lawn, if Tom Hanks let a 10-year-old kid mow his lawn, do you think anybody would have a problem with that whatsoever? Is this just the left looking for any reason to criticize?
Well, I mean, it's the New York Times former reporter. I'm not sure if it's the left necessarily. I think most people thought it was pretty adorable. I used to mow my lawn when I was 10 years old. My father used to pay me $1 a week, and eventually I expanded up the street, and I would make $4 or $5 a week mowing 4 or 5 lawns. So, it's American tradition.
Real quick, Noel, just let you get the last word.
Well, I mean, oh my gosh, political correctness gone amok. I mean, here's a guy willing to mow the lawn and put good sweat and sweat equity in here, and he's being criticized.
It's just ridiculous. A 10-year-old kid. All right.
I know.
Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Noel.
Good job. Well, the time now, it's 5 minutes until the top of the hour, and a surprise stowaway found clinging to a wheel well for miles. How the driver discovered this freeloading koala bear. And she never saw it coming. Nope, the cheerleader who should have checked her blind side. Ouch.
President Trump preparing to take center stage as leaders from around the globe convene in New York City.
It is a new day at the UN.
He's going to promote and advocate for the strength of democratic values.
This is not a president who will apologize for America. This is a president who will affirm America's standing in the world.
Heading into the third night, you've got several hundred protesters led by Anthony Lamar Smith's mother.
They shouldn't be nervous about me carrying my weapon because I've never killed anybody.
Well, a carnival worker falls from a Ferris wheel while rescuing 2 young boys after their cart got stuck sideways.
Another round of storms brewing out in the Atlantic. Maria has officially strengthened to a hurricane, and it's expected to just keep getting stronger.
Lights, camera, politics. Liberal Hollywood unleashing on President Trump.
I want to thank Trump for making black people #1 on the most oppressed list.
Don't talk to us about division in the country when you're going to use your platform to further divide the country.
Live from New York City, you're wondering why Challenger the Eagle is here. A bunch of kids, and they're waving. Well, today is Constitution Day on our plaza. It was in 1789 the U.S. Constitution was adopted, and today we're celebrating with Nick Adams, who has written a great version, especially for kids.
That's right. His organization, FLAG, just put out, is releasing today exclusively on Fox and Friends, the Student's Constitution, which takes that sacred document that was signed in Philadelphia 230 years ago and makes it come alive for kids so they can understand what our founding is.
Listen, we can learn a thing or two out of this book. This is absolutely fabulous. I want to take this home for my daughter.
I think you can.
I think one of the best parts about being a parent is you get to learn all of this all over again.
If you were in a hurry the first time.
Right.
As we all are. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Brian is off today. Pete is in. Ainsley, good to have you back.
Thanks. It's great. I actually went down to South Beach for the weekend and with a group of girlfriends, and we had that planned for, weeks. Even before this hurricane. But everything is good down there. There are so many people on the plane that work for FEMA, for emergency responding groups. It's awesome to see everyone come together. And the weather was great this weekend, and the restaurants were getting fuller and fuller and fuller as the days progressed. So.
Well, the West Coast is still pretty banged up, and they're getting patched up. I understand Tom Price, the Secretary for Health and Human Services, is going to survey the damage of the Keys later today.
Absolutely.
All right. Meanwhile, today, the President of the United States is going to be returning to New York City, and he will create what is historically the biggest traffic jam of the year.
It really is. That's what we all think in New York when we hear the UN is meeting.
Yeah, the United Nations General Assembly convenes today for about 10 days.
It is kicking off, and he will not take the podium today. That'll be tomorrow. But a lot of speculation and anticipation of what he'll use. I mean, it is a historic platform, especially for the first time a president, and a president like Donald Trump, who has had some very strong opinions about the UN in the past.
Yeah, he's been very critical of the UN. He has said, remember he tweeted this back in December, he said the United Nations has such great potential, but right now it is just a club for people to get together, talk, and have a good time. So sad. So he's going to meet with some of these world leaders who have signed on to his 10-point plan to reform the UN and change it and make it a little better.
Yeah, John Moody, who is an executive here at Fox News, he's got something posted on foxnews.com. And what he writes is, what diplomats need to know, President Trump means every word of what he's going to tell you, which is this: the United States is done with being blamed for everything that goes wrong in the world and then paying to fix it.
That's true.
Actually, that kind of sounds a lot like what the president said when he was still a private citizen before he assumed the presidency, just in December of last year.
The UN has such tremendous potential, not living up to its potential. There is such tremendous potential, but it is not living up. When do you see the United Nations solving problems? They don't. They cause problems. So if it lives up to the potential, it's a great thing, and if it doesn't, it's a waste of time and money.
Yeah, I mean, what an amazing moment he's going to have. I mean, the UN purports to stand for international peace and security, human rights, economic development. When he's going to get to stand at that podium and say, you remember these things called nation states and armies that are needed to defend those nation states and Western values? Speak hard truths to this group that loves to meet, cocktail hour, sanctions, international resolutions. And small anti-Western countries like to group together and use the UN as a bludgeon against America. He's going to turn those tables. It'll be very interesting.
Well, and Nikki Haley will help him do that. She was an excellent pick for the ambassador.
Unfortunately, there's nothing for him to talk about aside from North Korea, whether or not they're going to do anything with the Paris Accords and the Iran deal.
That's right. That's a big one. So there will be a lot of signaling of where, because there are still questions inside this administration which way they're going to go. H.R. McMaster sees the world a little bit differently than some others do. This president has been clear about the Iran deal and the Paris Climate Accord. Some equivocation, at least the perception of such. He'll be able to shut the door on that if he wants to.
Well, Kellyanne Conway is going to be with us here shortly, and she will give us a preview. In the meantime, it's 6:06 here in New York City, and we have a Fox News alert. Out in St. Louis, Missouri, they are under siege after a third straight night of violent protests over the acquittal of a former, now, police officer.
Police arresting dozens of criminals and agitators accused of vandalizing businesses and causing significant damage.
Our own Griff Jenkins live in St. Louis with the latest on those clashes. Griff, good morning.
Good morning, Pete, Ainsley, and Steve. A third night of violent protesters. The pattern is the same. It starts out peaceful with marches during the day, and by nightfall, what police here are calling criminals taking to the streets and just destroying small businesses just like this. You see a guy kicking in the Snails Center last night. Over 80 arrests last night. The total of 3 days, over 120. And it's caused a dozen or more officers who have been attacked by these evening protesters, these agitators, to be injured. Fortunately, none life-threatening, but certainly the sort of thing you don't want to see. The city obviously reeling after 3 years after Ferguson and what we saw play out there tonight, or last night rather, overnight, the 80 arrests, the largest of the protests that we've seen so far. The local leaders, Mayor Lyda Krewson and Chief Lawrence O'Toole, saying that this will not be tolerated. Nonetheless, we talked to some of the protesters, including one of their own, a state representative, Bruce Franks Jr. Here's what he had to say about the violence that's happening in the streets. Take a listen.
Systematic racism, systematic injustice, and it has to change.
You got hurt folks that feels like a system has failed them. So I understand folks being upset about broken windows, but we got broken lives out here. That doesn't compare.
Now, over the weekend, we did talk with Governor Eric Greitens as well, who tried to get in front of this, mobilizing the National Guard here in Missouri, as well as giving the police every confidence that he could has their back, and that this sort of violence won't be tolerated. We're told later this morning there may be another March gathering as people try and come to work on Monday, but we'll see. The hope here with all leaders is that this does not continue to escalate, guys.
All right, Griff, thanks a lot.
I was reading that they splattered red paint on the mayor's house and broke in the mayor's a window of her house.
Question is, how does it advance your cause to kick in the window of a nail salon?
Of a nail salon, right?
You know, I mean, at what point do you totally undo any legitimate criticism you may have?
But unlike certain localities where the police have just let the protesters bust up whatever they wanted to, the governor and the mayor and the police chief out there have made it very clear. If you break the law, you're going to go to jail. And a bunch of people did last night.
Well, last night, a lot of us were watching football, but apparently there was other stuff going on, too.
Yeah, after 60 Minutes, suddenly, it was the 69th annual Emmy Awards live from Hollywood. Stephen Colbert opened with kind of a Billy Crystal-like song and dance number. If you missed it, though, the whole show morphed into one great big, we have a president named Donald Trump, and we don't like him.
Shocker, shocker. Celebrities. All right, take a look.
He had won an Emmy, I bet he wouldn't have run for president. The president has complained repeatedly that the Emmys are rigged because, unlike the presidency, Emmys go to the winner of the popular vote.
Say, at long last, Mr. President, here is your Emmy.
Well, back in 1980, in that movie, we refused to be controlled by a sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot.
And in 2017, we still refuse to be controlled by a sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot.
I want to thank Trump for making black people #1 on the most oppressed list. He's the reason I'm probably up here.
On a very personal note, I want to say thank you to Hillary Clinton for your grace and grit. And thank you, my mother and sister. I'm so proud of you, Mom.
And a little pro-Hillary in there, too, at the end, of course.
The lady who played Hillary on Saturday Night Live.
Hillary on Saturday Night Live.
Right.
It's so predictable.
really is.
No, I mean, you know, you want to laugh.
I beg to differ. There was a moment in the Open that was absolutely unpredictable.
True.
Stephen Colbert was talking about how many people were going to be watching the 69th annual Emmy Awards. How big would the crowd be? He went then to somebody who pushed out a podium from stage left. Yep, it's that guy from the White House.
Is there anyone who could say how big the audience is? Sean, do you know?
This will be the largest audience to witness an Emmys, period.
And Melissa McCarthy, of course, they show her because she's the one that plays Sean Spicer, or did play him on Saturday Night Live, pulling out that podium.
Yeah.
He's not working at the White House now, obviously. So he has an agent, and he's
he
now
was in
doing
Hollywood
speeches.
last
I'm sure he
week.
got paid to go and do this.
So I bet he was doing a rehearsal last week. You know, you've got to figure that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, is probably watching that show and just thinking, this is great. I'm driving them crazy.
You have triggered an entire audience, and they're talking about me all night long. And maybe he inadvertently actually helps the ratings as well. Like,
Yeah.
Or not. Did you actually watch? Let us know.
Probably
Friends@FoxNews.com.
Probably not.
Did you watch the Emmys? Do you care what a bunch of liberals clapping like seals for each other care about our president or not?
That's harsh.
Well, it's kind of true. If you all agree, then is it really courageous? I don't think so.
I just like the idea of the seals. Pete.
All right, let's hand it over to Jillian, who has some headlines for us. Hey, Jillian, you did a great job with that hurricane coverage.
Thank you very much.
I love the live shots when you were at the gas station. We actually got to see these people. I mean, I was so
and the
sorry
tankers
for them.
pulling up and people
Yes,
being
but
so
how happy they
excited.
were.
We had a hard time finding gas. It was definitely a big problem down there. But we are dealing with some other headlines this morning, guys. So let's get to that right now, including this brand new chilling video possibly showing the London bucket bomber on his way to launch his attack. You can see a man walking with a bag similar to the one used to disguise an explosive that hurt 30 people. The surveillance clip filmed near a house raided by police belonging to an elderly couple that has raised hundreds of refugee children, including an 18-year-old arrested in connection to the attack. A 21-year-old Syrian refugee, Yahya Farouk, also under arrest as the UK lowers its terror threat. The 4 Americans injured in an acid attack in the south of France are all Boston College students. The students, all studying abroad, sprayed in the face outside a train station in Marseille. 2 were treated for facial burns, the other 2 for shock. They are expected to be okay. Police do not believe this was terror and describe the suspect as, quote, disturbed. A new round of protests on display in the NFL. Seattle Seahawks defensive end Michael Bennett isn't just sitting during the national anthem anymore. He's now taking his protest to the field. Take a look. Here he is raising his fist into the air using the Black Power salute to celebrate a sack. Bennett is currently accusing Las Vegas police of racial profiling and excessive force after an arrest at a casino last month. That's a look at your headlines on this Monday. I'll send it back to you guys. But, you know, it's another step now that we're seeing this play out on the field.
Yeah.
Something new. All right.
Can't even just celebrate.
Thank you, Jillian.
Thank you, Jillian. A Fox News alert this morning. This is one of the London subway bombers, one of the suspected terrorists spotted carrying a bag from his foster home to refugees 90 minutes before the explosion. Former jihadist turned counter-terror expert Mubin Shekai, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Sheikh, I think.
Sheikh, okay, reacts to these developments coming up next.
And she leaked classified documents, putting American lives at risk. But don't use the T word when describing, yep, that's Chelsea Manning.
Are you an American traitor?
No, I'm not. And I believe that I did the best I could